Hey, this is Lee Waddell, the original Ghostface from Wes Craven's Scream, and you are watching and tuned into Craven Something Scary.
Well, good evening, visitors, subscribers, patrons, and Cravenites. Welcome to Craven Something Scary, where it's all horror all the time. Well, guys, this is a very special stream tonight. I normally don't stream on Thursdays, so you know when I do, there's something special about it. And tonight is absolutely a great example. I have an amazing guest joining us tonight and his experience working in the film industry and specifically some great horror movies. You're going to know them all. If you don't already, you're going to know them all when I say them as we go through our interview. But he has got some amazing experience and such a great guy. I've had a chance to meet him backstage, and we already have had some great discussion. And you guys are going to love it. You're in for a treat. All right, a real treat. So I want to say this for everyone that's here. If you have questions for William tonight, definitely submit it into the chat. I will get to as many as possible. And also, if you have a question that you want to make sure of that we get on the screen and William will address it for you, do send in a super chat because they move ahead of everyone else, front of the line. I always promise you that. And I will guarantee you that we will not end the stream until all of those have been addressed. And of course, I'll get to as many as possible, but you know how these go. With discussion, we can't get to every single question. So it's not personal, you know that. It's just a matter of time and volume. So do send them in though. Keep them coming because I'm going to be watching the chat as we're chatting. And I know that he'll be actually very excited to answer your questions tonight about these amazing films that he was a part of. And I will just say this, speaking of amazing films, just to kind of give you an idea, and I'm not going to say them all, we'll save some of that, but Wes Craven's People Under the Stairs, this is Wes Craven month here on the channel. And every August, because he was born in August and he passed away in August. And so August is my month of dedication to Wes. And of course, kind of every day is kind of Wes Craven around here. Obviously, the channel name, you guys know how much I love Wes's work. But especially in August, it's a real special moment where we spend as much time as possible watching Wes's films and having guests on that were a part of those films. And William tonight we're going to be spending some time. Trust me, I'll be parking this for a while on The People Under the Stairs, which is a great Wes Craven film, as you guys know, as well as Predator 2, Nightmare on Elm Street 3, which is one of my most favorite Nightmare sequels, with the screenplay written by Wes, of course. Return of the Living Dead Part 2. That's going to be fun. He's got an amazing sequence in that movie that we're going to talk about. And there's so much more, there's more nightmares too. Nightmare 4, Freddy's Dead. We're going to get into everything. So without further ado, guys, without having any more time slip out of our hands, I want you all to give a warm welcome in the chat to tonight's special guest. Please welcome the one and only William Perry to the stream. Hi, William.
Hey, good evening. How are you?
I am wonderful, and thank you again for coming tonight. This is a real treat, not only for me, but for my audience. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. I love doing this.
Absolutely, man. And there's so many places we could start, and I touched on it a minute ago, and we'll get into, in one movie I didn't mention a minute ago, a little film called The Lost Boys. You may have heard of it out there, folks. Maybe. And so there's so many places we can start. But I think what I'd like to do, since this is Wes Craven month here on the channel, I would like to start kind of fast forward all the way to 1991. And if we could start with People Under the Stairs, and let's get Wes's film front and center, and before we get into everything else, could you just kind of explain maybe, because I love to always hear about origin story, and we're going to get into that. But for this specific role and stunt work, how did this all come about for you? Like, how How did the audition or the notice, or just kind of walk us through it? I'd love to know.
Yeah, generally speaking, when you're doing stunts, you're going to have a particular stunt coordinator who
Okay.
you work with here and there. You try to get as many as you can. And one of my good friends from back then was a gentleman named Tony Caesar. And Tony was Wes's stunt coordinator for 18 movies. They were very, very good
Wow.
friends. And so whenever he had a movie, he would just turn to Tony and say, "Okay, here's where we're going."
Yeah.
And so, being a good friend of Tony's, he said, "Hey, I've got this film. It's the makeup's going to be pretty heavy. The stunt isn't, super super challenging, but you got to be careful. We don't want to hurt the actors, and you're going to be in some crazy kind of makeup." Tony was just a really good guy, very good friends with Wes for many, many years, as you can imagine, doing 18 films.
Yes. Wow.
Wes was actually the first director that I ever worked with because Tony had hired me to do a Disney TV show. And who would know? I mean, who would think that Wes Craven was doing sneak, episodic television for Disney? You know, but
Yeah.
it was years and years later, and he had this film, and it was one of those things where by this time Wes was very well established.
Mhm.
He could pretty much do no wrong. He was if he had an idea, he was going to get it made. And
Mhm.
so with this one, it was a little more. Um, I'm trying to. What's the best way to say it? It was very out of the normal stream of stuff. This is back when I'm trying to think of the TV show. The two stars of People Under the Stairs were very big on
Oh,
Twin.
Twin Peaks, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So horror wasn't just horror anymore. It wasn't just, slashes and splatters and guts
Mhm.
hanging out. There was a comedic element to it, a very dark humor sort of element to it, which played to Wes's strengths. Wes was a very funny man, very clever, but very kind of under the radar kind of funny, where he'd say
Mhm.
something, and as the director, you don't want to laugh if that wasn't supposed to be funny. And then later you go, "Well, that was funny. God, that was funny." So he was and he enjoyed the humorous elements of the film and really played for that. He had said to me at one point, I also did his website years later, just
Yeah.
as another thing. And he had said, a laugh, if you went into a movie theater and you weren't seeing the screen, you were just watching the reactions, you wouldn't sometimes know whether it was a horror film or a comedy because the reaction is very much the same. It's a
Mhm.
it's a release, and
Mhm.
usually after the most gruesome murder, there's always a laugh afterward because you're so scared and then you recognize that you got scared and you have that little release of tension. And so he really liked that. And so
Mhm.
this film had a fair amount of, humor in it and a fair amount of just, you know, crazy characters. I mean, literally and figuratively,
Oh,
very
yeah.
crazy people. And he really liked that. He liked being able to play with those elements. And so when I was brought in, it was okay. So you're going to just bust through the wall and you can't see because you've got this sort of skin mask that you're wearing. And he said, you're going to come bursting through that wall, and the actress is going to be right in front of you, and you're not really going to be able to see, but I need you to, reach through and claw and grab and bite and scratch. But obviously don't hurt the actress. So people say, well, why would they need a stuntman to do that? Um, you could get hurt. And more
Yeah.
importantly, if you didn't know what you were doing, you might hurt the actor or actress that you're working with. And
Mhm.
so the responsibility is on you to keep them safe. So it's not just
Mhm.
to keep you, it's not about you getting hurt, it's about keeping others from being hurt. Yeah. So that's that scene that you're showing right there. That's me coming through the wall. Uh, and it's funny, I didn't mean to make this joke, but the other day somebody said to me, do people ever ask you about that movie, People Under the Stairs? And I guess they're making a remake right now. Jordan Peele is
Mhm.
in talks to do it. And I said, ever since people heard that I was in that, I mean, they're coming out of the woodwork.
That's awesome.
That's such a dad
That's
joke.
that
I'm
is, and I
so,
love it.
I'm so proud of it. My daughter just rolls her eyes. Like, and somewhere far away, my daughter's rolling her eyes, just knowing that I've said that joke again. But it was true. I didn't realize how popular that film was. And
Yes.
somebody had asked me to do a picture signing for autographs, and they said, "Yeah, we want your pictures." I said, "People under the stairs?" And they said, "Oh my gosh, there is this following for this
Yes.
film." And I thought, maybe you're in touch with those people, but I've never heard of that. But now that I do some conventions and things, I have pictures made up of that picture that you were just showing of me coming
Yeah.
through the wall. And people are like, "Oh, dude, you were one of the people, you're a title
Hmm.
character." I'm like, "Yeah, one of many." But yeah, when I went back to watch it recently because it was a long time ago, and it's not like these films are on all the time. Well, I guess now they are, but they weren't always on the film, and so I had to watch it again. And as I did, I thought that's why this. Okay, I get the cult following now,
Hmm.
um, because when you're doing it, it's all very tedious and slow. It takes weeks to do these things, and so you don't see it all put together until it's all
Hmm.
done, and then you probably see it once, maybe twice, and then it's off your radar, for some time. So going back and watching it now, it's like that was much funnier and much more clever than I remember it being, and so it's kind of fun to revisit them and and like you said, kind of go back and say, yeah, how did I get that part? What was that all about? And why
Yeah.
was it me? And watching it now, it's like I said, it's a lot more fun knowing that there is a following for it. And it's like, oh, okay, now I understand the following. That's cool.
Yes. And it's like as time continues to move on, and it just seems like, and as being plugged into the horror community for the last almost 2 years. My channel is almost 2 years old. It'll be 2 years old in September. And these last 2 years have been an amazing experience because I myself was kind of like where you were initially. Like, I wasn't very plugged into the community side of the horror world. And as I started this channel and began to meet amazing people, and things grew from there, and I realized quickly that the passion I felt, it's not an isolated case. It
Mm-mm.
is all over the world, and
And the
it's amazing.
creativity, that you
Yeah.
get into with that. We talked about this just a little bit before we came on the air, but
Hmm.
for example, somebody gave me this a few weeks ago. This is a Freddy mug
Yeah.
made by a place called Tabby Crafts, and it's completely sculpted. It takes her weeks to make these things,
Wow.
and I thought, oh my gosh, that's so cool. And she was like, "Well, I want you to have it." No,
Wow.
this took weeks, and I've got this shirt
Hmm.
and gloves and all of these things. And the community is so artistic, more than any other
Hmm.
genre of films that I've seen. The sci-fi folks aren't quite as tied in, and it activates something. That passion makes people want to create from that. The
Yeah.
cosplay and the
Hmm.
artwork that we see. Somebody will come up to you at a show and they'll hand you this painting, and you're like, "Damn, did you do this?" And they're like, "Yeah." And I'm like, um, "Wow, thanks for showing it to me." They're like, "No, I want you to sign it." I'm like, Gosh, this is such a beautiful piece of work. I don't want to. I don't want to, mark it up." And they're like, "No, please, that will make it for me. That'll maybe
Wow.
have it mean something." And it's like, God, that's crazy. And on Instagram, there's I think it's a channel called Art Horror, and the guy just publishes every day all the work that people submit to him, and it's
Oh,
beautiful, beautiful stuff. Some really
yeah.
talented artists who this um, this genre of films connects with them on a very gut level. There we go again. Yeah,
Yeah.
very visceral, but it really connects with them, and it sparks their imagination in ways
Hmm.
that is really deep and very. It's a very passionate thing, and I love looking
Yeah.
at the work because I consider myself to be a bit of an artist as well, but
Hmm.
not nearly as talented or crafty as the folks that I'm seeing. So it's lovely to see their work and just go, wow, that's you put a lot of time and effort into this, and that's beautiful work. And uh,
Yeah.
it's these films and this genre of you know horror, spooky that really ignites them. And hey, man, and whatever gets you there, it's great to see somebody express themselves with this stuff and do beautiful
Hmm.
work.
For sure. Now, kind of focusing back on people under the stairs. And I know it's been a little while, so I don't expect you to like have everything down like concrete like it would have been a few years after a movie was made. But in general, what do you recall your shooting schedule like? for that movie?
I believe we did 3 or 4 days just for that one scene, and the scene that I
Wow.
was in was sort of the climactic scene where
Yes.
they they literally come bursting through the walls, and I
Mhm.
guess we eat her. I'm assuming we don't
I
exactly see, but she's not
yeah.
happy. She's not
Nope.
happy. Dad's not happy. And so I remember they did. I love the makeup.
Mhm.
I love being in the suit. I love being in the makeup. I hear a lot of guys complain, "Oh my gosh, I had to be in that chair for 4 hours." I'm like, dude, you have an artist working with you for 4 solid hours, trying to make you look as real and gruesome and
Mhm.
cool. I mean, duh.
Duh,
What
right?
little kid doesn't want to dress up for Halloween and have the outfit, the
Mhm.
makeup that is so convincing that mom is scared to death and that people won't open the door anymore? That's Halloween, baby. And
Yeah, it
so
is.
sitting in that chair, for a couple of hours at least to do all
Mhm.
that, and the wardrobe, and then each day that picture you were just showing of me going, that's a shot that they took to as part of the makeup and hair and costume department, so that each time we would start the next day, I had to look exactly like that again for continuity's
Oh,
sake.
continuity,
So
yes.
yeah, so they'll take those pictures and they'll make sure he's got the right shirt, because they may have 3 or 4 shirts that look very similar to that. But if that's the one we used in the first shot, that's the one we got to use in the second shot, unless for some reason it's been changed or torn
Yeah.
or something like that. So you sit in the chair and they take that shot. And of course I said, "Hey, can you take a picture of me just so I have a copy?" And they said, "Sure." So I went, "Yar," and stuck my hands up, and I got to keep it. And now I look back on it now, and every time I see that, I just giggle. Um, does
So
this say
great.
PG-13 crowd watching our show today?
Yeah,
Yeah,
PG-13 is cool. If we can if
because
I'd
somebody had said
appreciate it.
somebody had said to me, "What is that on your face?" And I said, "At the time, we said it was scrotum." So
Okay. That's
so
hilarious.
that's for those of you who don't know what scrotum is, don't look it up right now. Wait till later.
That's right.
But that was, that sort of thing. And there's just little tiny little slits for eyes, so I can sort of see what I'm doing. You can
Man.
sort of see him in the picture there. Uh,
Oof.
but it was, I remember being very much up for it. And that particular stunt and sequence is something you don't want to have to do multiple times, because I come bursting through that wall. Well, if it
Mhm.
doesn't work out, something goes wrong, they got to rebuild that wall.
Oh
And
gosh, that's right.
they may not have 2 or 3 setups, so
Mhm.
it might be, if something goes wrong and it's on my if it's my fault, then that's a very expensive mistake. It may take
Yeah.
them 6-7 hours to reset. And that's, you know I think back in the day, you could say that making a film was about $100,000 an hour, based on all the
Ooh.
people you had to pay, and
Wow.
all the craftspeople and the food and the overtime and everything like that. So you don't want to meet a guy that made that mistake. So when you came
No.
through that wall, you better know what you're doing. And so we would walk through it very slowly and talk about what we were going to do. And that was always the funnest part for me, to be able to work with the other actors and
Mhm.
work with the director, being Wes. And what do you want? Is he frantic? Is he
Mhm.
angry? Is he he's been in this little tiny crawl space in the wall. Is he um is he slow? Is he
Mhm.
frenetic? What's the vibe?
Yeah.
And then you get to talk about that with the director, and get their vision for what that scene was going to take. And I know some people don't think of stunt people as actors, but I was an actor
Phew.
for a long time before I did stunts.
Yeah.
And it's a very physical kind of acting.
Yes.
um, and
Absolutely.
and when the director will actually sit and spend time with you and explain what their vision for
Mhm.
this character, or this whole community of these people living in the house,
Yeah.
um it was fun, because then you get to get into Wes's mind a little bit. And that's always good.
Oh,
Anytime it
yeah.
made you feel special that they were spending this time with you,
Mm.
to give you their vision and really plot it out. And when you were done with it, you just felt like you're on top of the world. It's like, wow, my little scene is going to be pivotal, or they wouldn't have put
Heck
this much
yeah.
time into me.
That's
And
right.
because it is like, I mean, at the time, I didn't know where this scene was in the grand scheme of things until after we shot it. And So Wes sat and he said, yeah, I want you to come through that wall. I want you, this is you've been dreaming of this moment, and you're so angry and so upset, and you're gonna just attack, and yeah, you're gonna eat this woman alive, literally.
Ooh,
you know
wow.
and so it's the stunt has a little more depth to it. It's not just flying across the room letting
Yeah.
gravity take its course. You actually have to do that. And then the other part was and this they do this a lot in stunts, where if you're working with the actor, it's more about them. Instead, if you're strangling somebody, you're not strangling them, they're pulling your hands to their throat,
Mhm.
because that way they're in control of how much aggression is happening there. So if I'm pushing towards her, I can hurt her, or if I'm grabbing onto her, I could actually cause some damage. So she's basically kicking me, and I'm sort of trying to control the foot that she's kicking me with. That way she's in control. It looks like I'm attacking her, but in a sense, she's sort of attacking me. And that way, if she was to pull away because she was uncomfortable or this hurt her in any way, I'm not going to be hanging on. I'm the one kind of I'm allowing her to be as aggressive as the scene requires, and I'm kind of holding back and just keeping her safe. So it's when you see that on film, I don't know that it's something you'd pick up, but when you know it and you watch scenes now, when you'll see the actress or the actor working with a stunt person, when you understand that that person is much more in control of the violence and the activity there, it just changed. Like, it's a little dynamic that you see, and it's like, oh yeah, if you look at it, it's she's the person flexing, and the person that's reaching out doesn't look nearly as aggressive. But again, that's the sort of trick behind it, is you want to make sure that it looks good, but you got to keep those people safe, because the slightest scratch or dent in that person means we got to wait till they're better. If I get hurt, hey man, who cares? I'm not going to be here tomorrow. But that actor, that lead person, they got to be here. And if you have a cut on their face, now you got to wait till it heals, which could be days, weeks, So, so that film was a lot of fun. I remember that scene very vividly, and sort of waiting, for the cue outside my wall before I had to go busting through, and thinking, number one, don't hit your head. There's a real 2x4 ahead of you. And then when you go through the wall, reach for the leg, but don't grab, and have this almost adrenaline, cocaine fueled kind of jittery manicness as you come through. It's like, I can do that. That'll be fun, and it does work. Watching it back later, it's like, yeah, that was it's a pretty scary scene, and all the knives and blood and everything else just make it much more intense. Are you there? Did I lose you? Well, if you're out there in the audience, I'm here alone by myself right now. Gonna see if I can see what's going on here. Oh, we've got a lot of comments. Hey, Paula. Just gonna say hi to people until our host comes back. Oh no, William. I think we lost Craven. Yes, I think we did. This has happened to me before in the past, and I have had a chance to just wait it out, and hopefully our host returns. So, since I'm in control of the show, I'll see if I can go through. If anybody's got some questions, this is your time. You've got 100% access here, and I'm going to run this show. I'm going to run this show my way. Can you tell us what it was like working with Wes Craven? Of course. Wes was a very cool guy. I got 3 chances to work with Wes. I worked on 3 shows with him, 2 television shows, plus People Under the Stairs. And then later in life, as I got out of the stunt business, a mutual friend, Tony Caesar, hired me or got me hired to be Wes's web developer. And so I ended up working with Wes on a regular basis on a much more personal level, where I would talk to him about his life, talk to him about questions that would come into his website. and I would respond to folks, and I would respond through the site and tell people what was going on in Westworld. And just a very sweet guy, very smart, exceptionally smart, very funny, very gleeful. He loved scaring people. That was so much fun for him. You could see it in his face when he knew that something really gruesome was going to happen, and it was as if he was imagining what the audience was going to do when this moment happened, because he'd have this whole thing just playing out in his mind, and then he would cause all of us actors and stunt people and craftsmen to build that vision that he had. And it would work like a solid year to get a film made, and then you make that film in maybe 9 weeks, 10 weeks, something like that. And so the fun part is making the movie, and Wes really enjoyed that. He got to actually work with the actors, work with the special effects people, work with the crew people, and make this vision come to life. And so when he was on set, he was just a kid in a candy store, a very dark, very scary, poisonous, candy store. And I just remember working with him being so much fun because he was having a good time. He was just deeply happy doing it. And making films can be complicated, and it can be you have to make compromises sometimes because of time or money or whatever. But Wes never he never got rattled, or if he did, you never saw it. So he was very in control, knew what he wanted, and very creative. If he had to work around a problem, he'd work around that problem. He'd find a way. Never really looked like you didn't know there was something wrong until maybe later somebody would say, "Oh yeah, Wes was kind of freaking because this was a big upset and he had to change things." You wouldn't have known it working with him, because he was just a very chill, very funny, and very good at working with actors. He knew how to get from actors what he wanted to see. There's a lot of great stories about working with Drew Barrymore and how he got her into that first scene, and working with what scared her, and so yeah, just a very thoughtful, very gentle, very funny, macabre guy who got his freak on with horror movies and just enjoyed it. So I hope that answers that question. Let's see if I can see anything else going on here. Let's see. There's Jason and Sarah. Leave it to the stuntman to hold down the fort when something unsuspected. Damn straight. That's what I'm saying. What else we got here? Thank you for taking the time. Well, I'm glad to be here. Sorry about the glasses. I'm so freaking old. If you guys hear that sound in the back of that, it's grinding. That's my bones. Let's see. And can you tell? Okay, there's that working with Wes. Other questions, people. I don't know when he's coming back. Huge fan of Nightmare on Elm Street. How was it behind the scenes? It was good behind the scenes on Nightmare on Elm Street. I actually did 3 Nightmare on Elm Streets. I like to say that I hold the world record for being killed by Freddy Krueger. It may not be true, but I like to say it. So I'm just going to keep saying it. But I worked on Nightmare 3, 4, and 6. In 3, I was the stunt double for Ira Heiden, who was the Will character, who was the kid who was in a wheelchair. In Nightmare 4, there was a character named Rick, who was a martial artist, and that was kind of my claim to fame back in the day. So I did some of his martial arts scenes. And then Nightmare 6, I was Sean Greenblatt's stunt double for the very opening sequence. If you see it, you actually see the credits, rolling. And it's Freddy's taking this kid, and it's kind of a Wizard of Oz kind of thing. The house is spinning around, and they drop it down onto Elm Street, and he falls from the window, smashes to the ground, this guy, and then runs to Freddy's door. And so those were the sequences I was involved with, and different directors for each. Wes wasn't on set for any of those because he basically directed the first one and the very, very last one. He did some writing on some of the others, but different directors, different mindset. but all good films. I mean, all fun. Making those movies was a kind of low budget affair in the day. And so there was a lot of creativity generated because you didn't have hundreds and millions of dollars. You just had, I mean, I think 3 was the biggest budget, which was only 13 million, which was not a very big budget. That was still considered fairly low budget back then. But the biggest one they had, all the others were made for like 5 million. And the mindset was, hey, why put more money into this than necessary? If we can make 50 million on 5 million, do it. Why spend 10 million if you can do it for 5? And so the directors were usually not first timers, but making a name for themselves. And so Chuck Russell and some other folks that were doing those were, making their big play for doing a full film. Usually it was their like first full length film or first film where they were the director, as opposed to just being the second unit or something like that. I've been holding down
I'm
the fort here. Where you been?
Man, my internet completely crashed. It's still down. I said, you know what? Heck with this. All the bells and whistles. I'm going to get on my phone on my data
There you
plan,
go.
and I'm going to jump in. So I can't pull up any comments, but I can see them. So
Yeah, I've
you know
actually
what,
been
William,
I've actually
when
been
you're
answering a
live,
few questions. Yeah, I've been
man,
answering a
listen, I
few.
appreciate
The
that.
most difficult
This is
question.
what it is. Yeah. I
I'm
was just
sorry,
going to
somebody's
say,
asked me
this is
what's the
live,
most
right?
difficult project I've worked on. What is the most
Oh,
difficult project? That's a good one. You got some smart people out there. Most difficult project. Gosh, I would say Predator, the Predator 2, only because it was a big cast, the biggest budget I've ever been on, a lot of special effects, some green screen kind of things. The Predator was invisible, so we had to do some stuff there. A lot of practical special effects in addition to the visual effects, and I guess it was just also one of my favorite ones to work on because of all that. Sometimes working on something that's, kind of plain and simple. It's like I want special effects. I want fire, and I want people being thrown around. I want buckets of blood. I want I want to be as involved as I can be, and I want it to be as spectacular. You only get sometimes as a stunt person, you may only get 30, 40 seconds on screen if you're lucky. So you want those 30 seconds to be iconic and memorable and something where when you look back on it, you go, yeah, that was me. So I'll say Predator 2 just for.
yeah. Well, speaking of Predator 2, I am able to show pictures. So
Okay.
yay, I have access to most of my stuff. Hey, William, this is the joy of live streaming. There's no
Yes.
net, man. It is happening live in real time. So
Well, it's funny because people have voted
thanks
you
for
out.
going with the flow.
Yeah, well, this is now my channel. Other people have asked me. I mean, if you look at, you can't see the chat, but people have actually asked if I could just, so sorry, man. The people have spoken.
Hey, man, I can turn it over, William, the rest of the way. You guys, it's funny. But yeah, so the Predator 2, and I do want to get back just a little bit to Wes, but since you're on that topic, I love the scene coming in there with your boys, man, coming in there to call us some tomfoolery in the subway. And I love this shot. I mean, look at that face. That is
man,
I'm the Cisnitz. I know what's up.
It's actually surprising that I don't just burst into flames. I'm so oily there. I mean, I didn't actually even walk, and I just kind of ooze like a snail. But yeah, that was my first on-screen speaking role, and that was a very big deal. Very excited about that. There's a story that's on the internet where somebody I did a signing for had posted this thing. They said, what was your favorite thing about working on a movie? And I talked about working with Bill Paxton. And Bill was really becoming a bit of a big star about that time. He'd done a few big things, not as big as he got into, but he was just really super kind to me. And it's one of those things where I look back on that, and he had said to me, don't let this day go. this is your first time, big budget film. And he said, just relax, man, do your best work today. Cause and he was in Terminator, and he said, did you ever see Terminator? And of course he goes, well, I was just some gang member, and that was the day that my career really took off. He said, so enjoy today, man. Don't let this go. I was like, he didn't have to do that, but what a cool guy, and just really made my first
Yep.
nervous day of being on the set of I think it was a $60 million, $40 million film, just the best day ever, and I remember it so vividly
Oh,
because of that, and thinking, yeah, and I remember we did the dialogue, and then it was so noisy when we were filming because we were on a real train car, but it wasn't actually going anywhere. It was in a soundstage, and they were rocking it back and forth, and there was all this squeaking. So they said, we have to do the dialogue over again. And so they take us to this big studio, and there's the film, like 60 feet wide. And they said, okay, you got headphones on, and you're going to hear beep, beep, beep. On what would be the fourth beep, start saying your lines and match what you're seeing on screen. And so I'm watching. Beep, 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 beep. Bill, yeah. Bill, you got to start talking. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. So, okay, we start again. Beep, beep, beep. Bill, yeah. You got to start talking. Oh, sorry. He's like, have you never seen yourself this big on screen before? I said, never, man. You're so cool. I'm having the best day ever. And he's like, okay, let's watch it a few times. Let you get used to it. Let you get comfortable, and get the heebie-jeebies out, and then we'll actually do the recording. Like, okay, I'm gonna try so hard. Because this was everything I dreamt of as a kid. When I was in fourth grade, I decided I'm going to be an actor when I grow up. And there it was, 20th Century Fox on a screen that's, screens bigger than you'd find in any of the, little mini plexes anymore. And there I was on screen, and it was just me, and it was actually me. No, that wasn't a stunt necessarily, at least not yet. And that was everything I ever dreamt of. And my whole world was just encapsulated in that moment. And I thought, this is what people dream about, and I get to actually do it. How cool is that? So when I look back on that film,
cool.
it's nothing but happy. And every night, I mean, it used to play on TBS about every 15 minutes. And so my wife would go, oh my God, they're showing your flipping movie again. I'm like, hey, that's residuals, baby. Don't be do that. Oh, that's a great picture. Yeah, and just when you look at that picture, when you see it on your screen, I'm about 4 inches tall. That's just about life size for me. And Kevin Peter Hall behind me, people say, well, what is he standing on? I'm like, he's standing on the ground, as am I. I have the advantage of being in the foreground, so I look bigger. And I am right about, his elbow, really.
Yeah.
When somebody is over 2 foot taller than you, that's a very different world, but a super sweet guy, super smart guy. Really, he did a lot of other stuff. He did like Harry and the Hendersons and some other stuff. And his whole thing was, it's not a suit. It's an actor in a suit, and it's an actor playing a character in a suit.
Yep. Yeah.
So, because people would say, well, the only reason the guy gets the work is because he's tall. And it's like, no, actually, he did some work where he wasn't in a suit, in a big monster suit, and he was a good actor. It's kind of hard to get work when you're, 2 foot taller than everybody else on set, but a really, very smart guy, very, very focused on the performance that he gave as we did it. Because you see it all, and you're just like, how can you act when you're wearing what amounts to probably a 70-pound foam suit? It's like,
Right.
if any performance can come out of that's recognizable, as being a person in a suit, you've done your work, because that's a lot to carry around, and you're dehydrating as time goes by. That suit's made of latex. Imagine being wrapped in an inch thick of wetsuit for 8, 10, 12 hours a day. That's acting. That's hard work.
Oh yeah, absolutely, man. That's a it's a great sequence, and that's just how cool is, I mean, that just, it's a cool story, man. You know, the whole, how the whole thing started, and how all the way to you doing your audio overdubs. Man, that's really cool. It really is cool.
Yeah,
It's really neat to
it's
hear
the
that.
sort of magic that's behind it all, you know. And you mentioned being the little guy in the scene. When we auditioned, they were looking for gang members, and I'm this preppy little twerp. You know, I looked like I just stepped off the golf course, and I thought they're not going to see me. I'm not street, you know. And then everybody that comes in are these gargantuan dudes, and I thought, what am I even doing here? And so they bring me in for the audition, and I'm auditioning with another guy who's much bigger than I am, and he looks like he's been beaten or beaten other people up his whole life. He's broken nose and crazy hair and tattoos everywhere. And I thought, well, I know who's getting the part, and it ain't this guy, it ain't me. And at the end, they said, no, we really liked you as the gang leader, because there's this, you know, the little brains behind the gang, you know, managing all these, you know, big hulking
Uh,
monsters. And I thought, wow, okay, I'll do that. I didn't see it that way. I'd given up. I gave up the minute we walked into that audition, but I made sure that I gave a good audition so that the other actor I was working with would, you know, have somebody to act off of. And acting lesson 101 right there: never be thinking about yourself. Think
yeah.
about the scene, think about the other actors you're working with, react in real time. Don't think about what the director wants, do what the scene requires. And I remember after that
Yeah.
thinking, wow, I was so convinced that I wasn't even trying. And that's the,
Mm,
you know, that's when you end up getting the roles, when you're not trying, that you're actually just working, you know, you're just doing the actual
yeah.
scene as if it was real. And because I wasn't thinking about, oh my gosh, I'm going to get into this big movie, this is going to be so great, I actually probably gave the best audition I've ever given, because I wasn't worried about getting a movie, you know.
That's
Lesson
right.
to actors
Kind of
out there.
actually, it worked for you the best way.
Y- Absolutely.
Yeah. So as far as that scene, do you remember how many times you filmed
You
that
know,
scene? I mean, was there
probably,
multiple
gosh,
takes?
I know that was 4 solid days of being on set for that. And we did it
Okay.
quite a few times because they change, you know, camera locations. We were actually filming inside a subway car. And so it wasn't something that, like, a lot of times they'll like cut a car in half, and then they can film from this side and film from that side. And but since we really were in a subway car, we had to shoot it as best we could identically from 4 or 5 different angles. And so it was a whole
Mm,
week. And I remember being very excited by it. And one of the funnier stories about that, the story goes around that at the end of the film, because Danny Glover was a huge Laker fan, that at the very end, Danny Glover has killed one of the predators, and then all of a sudden 5 more just materialize, and he pulls out the knife and says, "Who's next?" And that, because Danny was a Laker fan, the story was that these were all going to be Lakers. They'd find the tallest guys, because I mean, uh, um, you know, Kevin was 7'6". So,
yeah.
but the interesting was, they came to me at one point and said, "Hey, can you be a predator?" You're talking to me? Yeah. And I'm like, no, because I'm 5'6", not 7'6". And they said, no, no, no. We're looking for little guys, because the suits are much cheaper and faster to make on a smaller person. I mean, it's, you know, just materials
Uh-huh.
alone. And I was like, oh, and they said, yeah, we're going to get 4 other guys. And so they were looking for guys who were my height, you know, 5'6". And I was so excited. And then they said, oh no, you're filming that day. But no, please. I want to be a predator so bad. And it didn't end up, and I guess they ended up actually getting taller guys. But yeah, I was like, oh, how cool would that be to be both a predator victim and a predator? I mean, how much better does it get than
Wow.
that? You know, but
Yeah.
we can't all be a predator. We don't all get to be astronauts. You know, we don't all get to be
That's
that
true.
guy.
No, but the guy you were was a great part, and it's a memorable part,
Yeah.
and it's a memorable scene, and you nailed it, man. You killed it. You did
Yeah,
great. It was
a guy
awesome.
called me one time and he said, "Say something else." And I was like, "What's that?" He says, "Say you look like a sympathetic dude." And I go, "Oh shit. Is it you? Are you that guy?" Yeah, I'm that guy. And he's like, "I remember that scene. I always thought that was the best line." And I was like, "Wow, that's the line you remember from that film?" But that's nice. Nice to be remembered. But yeah, I didn't realize that one
Yeah.
little scene would actually somebody would hear my voice and all of a sudden he just hears it and he's like, "No, you're that guy." Yeah, I guess I am. Fun stuff.
That's so cool. Yeah. So, all right. Now, and again, sorry for the little gap there. That I know you did a great job. My moderators were jumping into and asking some great questions, and people in the chat as well. So, I'd like to backtrack just for a second, if we could,
Uh-huh.
back to People Under the Stairs for a minute. Um, and because we were kind of talking about Wes there at the area when I lost my connection, and so you were talking about how Wes would really sit down with you and
Mhm.
kind of share. I just like to ask you, what was the tone on the set with Wes? What was the culture you felt in the environment there? I always like
Yeah.
to hear actors that have worked with him to hear their stories of that experience.
Wes, and I mentioned this a little bit when you were off at the air, but Wes was a gleeful person. When he knew that they were doing a scene where there was
Mhm.
some sort of mayhem happening, he was like the giddy little kid. I think of it like when if you're a boy and back in the day somebody gave you a bunch of army men, you would dig intricate tunnels in your backyard
Yeah.
and then you'd get rocks and firecrackers and blow them up. That was Wes's attitude. He had all of the actors, he had all the craftsmen, he had a good story, he had cameras, and he loved setting up that scare. And you could
Mhm.
just see it in his eye. He was kind of hunkered down and sitting in his director's chair, waiting and watching. And he just, I was saying, you could see that he has it all pictured in his mind. He knows what he wants to see. And so he's manipulating the camera and manipulating the actors and manipulating all the different variables in there to try to
Yeah.
get the vision in his head into what you're going to see on camera. And so he was always very, very gleeful. You could just tell he knew that the scary thing was coming up. He would be very excited, like he was having fun with it. One of the stories he had told me about working with Drew was he needed to figure out what was going to
Mhm.
get Drew so scared for Scream. And she had talked about
Mhm.
how there was some boys had taken a dog and burned it to death. And this
Mhm.
story absolutely just shocked her to the core. She's very much a pet advocate. And so Wes used that with her. And he would say,
Mm.
she's getting ready to do the scene. We're all, everybody's talking and laughing. And then it's like he needs to get her back in that spot. And so he would turn to her and he would say, "They're lighting the match, Drew. And they're putting the gasoline on the dog."
Oh.
And her tears would just,
Oh.
come. And then she'd do the scene and then he'd go hug her and get her out, get her, back
Yeah.
to, and there's some great behind the scenes footage on the internet I've seen of her doing that scene, teary eyed. And then they show, I think you had Lee Waddell on the show, and Lee's a friend of mine, and he did that scene with her and he tackles her. And
Mhm.
then she gets up and does this, Mary Lou Retton dismount, after she does the scene. So there was this, when he needed that actor to really get to that dark place of horror and fear and panic and despair, he would work with them to get there. But and because he needed that, but as soon as it
Yeah.
was done, he wanted to get you out of there. He didn't want to let you sit and suffer, unnecessarily. So, but when you're doing some of the other, like People Under the Stairs, which had a much lighter tone to it, you could just see him sitting there smiling, just waiting for the mayhem to begin. And if it wasn't quite, mayhem enough, you'd do it again. He was going to get it. He was going to get it the way he wanted it. but he really he would spend a year trying to get a film made, and then you get maybe 8-10 weeks to film it. So that's the fun part. That's like waiting to go to Disneyland for such a long time and saving up all your money, but when you actually get there, that's when the fun really begins. And I think that's kind of was Wes's
Yeah.
demeanor, was finally we get to take this vision that's running around my head, and we're going to make it real. We're going to put it out there for people to watch. And he really made movies for himself. I don't think he was concerned entirely with whether, as long as it scared him, he figured it would scare you. He knew his stuff. So very
Yeah.
pleasant to work with, very creative, very funny,
Oh man,
very
that's awesome,
smart,
man.
and really understood what a journey an actor might need to go through in order to get to that place where he needed him. And I'm not, trying to emphasize the great performance I did, but I watched him work with other actors, and he was very aware of what their job was and how he needed to help them understand they needed to, what emotional space they needed to be in, and he'd help them get there, which is what a good director does.
Fantastic. That's so awesome. Thank you for giving us some more insight into the legend of Wes Craven. What an amazing filmmaker and storyteller. And what, everyone that I've had the privilege of meeting and talking to that worked with him all have different stories, but a similar theme that runs through them all. And I've heard, it just, they always say careful not to meet your heroes. But you know what? Wes is someone I'm convinced that I would have not been disappointed
Not the least
whatsoever
bit.
if I'd have got a chance to
No.
meet.
No,
Yeah.
very
That's so
a very smart guy too, and that's some part of what when people think of horror films, I think there's a tendency to think of them as being a bit of a throwaway because you don't net
Mhm.
another slash and splatter sort of horror film. But Wes's really weren't that way. Wes's films were, for the most part, pretty cerebral, and
Yeah.
especially the ones he wrote. If he wrote it, it was very
Yes.
cerebral, and he spent a lot of time, and he was a professor or a teacher to begin with, and so he was very thoughtful about what he did and how he wrote and what effect that he wanted it to have. So it wasn't just opportunistic, I'll make another horror film. It was like, no, he was going to do it. He wanted to make something new and different, and he wanted to find a new way to scare you, find a new way to access some dark part of your brain that you are not completely in control of, and exploit it for his own amusement. So very like I said, I had nothing but good experiences with him. He was a really really good soul, really allowed people around him
Wow.
to do their best work, and that's what a very generous thing, to say to somebody, well, let's let you get there and let's see what you come up with, where he'd allow your
Yes.
creativity to enhance what he had in mind.
Wow. And I guess, I think it's the confidence too that he had, right? That
Yeah.
he could let you do that. And if it didn't fly, he'd fix it.
Shoot it again.
He'd
Yeah.
change it up. Right.
And towards the part of his career, like I had gotten out of doing film, and I was working for Wes as his web developer, and he had just finished a book called The Fountain Society, and he was working with Meryl Streep on a movie called
Yes.
Music of the Heart, and it was, as much as Wes had this great confidence, he didn't want anybody to think that Wes Craven could only do horror films. And so he had done a lot of episodic television, and he'd done all these other things, but he wanted to bring a story out, and he wanted to work with an actor of not just, great, but like legend, and Meryl Streep has been a legend forever.
Mhm.
And getting to work with her and that sort of thing, I feel like it was that place where Wes was kind of saying to the rest of the industry, see, I'm a great director, God damn it. And I don't want anybody talking about how I'm just,
That's right.
the master of horror. Yeah, it's a great title. I'm proud of that, but I'm not confined to that. And I think it made him feel very,
Yeah.
it gave him that last boost of, like, yeah, stop. I can do whatever. I can do whatever kind of films I want to do. But they wouldn't let him do Music of the Heart until he did Scream 4, because, or was it Scream 3? Scream 3. And they said, look,
Scream 3. Yeah.
if you do Scream 3, we'll let you do this one. And there's a lot of that in Hollywood, where if you want to do your pet project, and they're like, who gives a crap about some school teacher who taught a bunch of grade school kids, disadvantaged kids to play music? Let's go watch somebody get splattered up, because that's where the money's going to be made. So he made that deal with the devil. Okay, I'll do Scream 3 if you want me to, but then you got to let me do Music of the Heart. They're like, fine, do your pet project. Danny Glover had wanted to do something, and he did Predator 2 as a, if you let me, I'll do Predator 2 if you'll let me do, his other thing. So a lot of times when you get to a certain level, when you want to go for Oscar, you kind of have to say, well, I'll do the money-making one that you want first, but then you give me the opportunity to show my skills, in another area. And I think Wes kind of had to do a little bit of that. I mean, he loved making horror films, but I think he wanted to be remembered down the line as a great director, not a great horror film director alone. So, little insight there. Have we lost you again? Hang on. Ladies and gentlemen, your operator will be right with you. Your call is very important to us. John says, what did John say? What's up? Hope you're having an amazing night. Talking to Polar, whoever that is. Oh, that's Bye-Bye Polar. I adored Music of the Heart. Well, good. I'm glad you enjoyed it. He was very, very excited about that film. And when they had cast Madonna to do it, he was like, ooh. He met Madonna one time, was like, And then when they said Meryl Streep, he's like, now we're talking. Michael Myers is a legend. I don't think he's dead. Michael Myers was not a Wes thing, but probably true. There was a great line Wes Craven said to me a long time ago, when he was doing when we were doing Freddy's Dead. I said to him, so when do you think Freddy's going to die? Because, they were saying Freddy's dead, the final nightmare. He said, Freddy Krueger will die when he stops making money. So Sarah had a great question earlier. Was there ever a stunt you performed that pushed your comfort zone? That is a great question that I get a fair amount. I think anybody who does stunts long enough will eventually do a stunt that you feel like, ooh, this could do it. This could be really bad if this goes poorly. But a good stunt person, and I like to think of myself as a fair stunt person, not even a great stunt person. A good stunt person looks at the stunt and says, have we removed all possible negative variables? Is there anything I can do to make this stunt safe and still achieve the goal that the director has for it? So if you were supposed to be lit on fire, for example, if you're going to be on fire, you need to know you've got a great safety crew. You need to know that the cameras are where they need to be. You don't want to have to do this more than once. It's very dangerous stuff. And so as you do those, you look at all the variables, and then it finally comes down to where you say to yourself, can I trust myself to be able to do the physical part of this that this requires? And we were doing the movie License to Drive. And there's a stunt in there where I have to go out the back end of a school bus through the glass, and I have to land on a vehicle that's following us. And there's cameras on that vehicle. There's cameras following us. There's cameras inside. So we have to do this stunt from that. And I thought to myself, I got to go through this window, which is glass, which is always, it's candy glass, but candy glass will still catch you. I've still got scars from that show. And I remember thinking to myself, if I blow it, I'm going to get run over by the follow vehicle. And that would be bad. But it came down to, look, I can do dive rolls. This is a dive roll. I got to go through glass first. Got to keep, we got to make sure I don't show my face so that they don't see that it's Bill Perry and not Corey Haim. but I can do that. In the end, I trust my air sense well enough to know that once I've got my feet through the window, that's when you start your curl and tuck, and then land on the follow vehicle. So you've done all you can do to remove the scary variables, and then it's up to you. And as a pseudo athlete kind of person, you have to ask yourself, what are you capable of? And if you feel like you can't do it, then you don't. And maybe they bring somebody else who can. But a good stunt person should always know their limitations and not do something where you think you're actually going to get hurt. It's supposed to look like it hurts. It's not actually supposed to hurt. And you may have to do that stunt 3 or 4 times, because just because you did it right doesn't mean that the cameraman, did his part. And so pushing your limits, yeah, you want to push your limits every now and then, but you never want to say to yourself, I could buy it doing this stunt, and the chances of that are better than the chances of my making it. That's not making a movie. That's suicide, or that's a very bad. That's a bad day at work. You never want to put yourself into a position where you think, yeah, I don't see myself coming out of this without an injury. That's not making a movie. That's what I call daredevil versus stuntman. Different line of work. Great
So,
question.
William, let me ask. Oh, sorry. Yeah, as you can tell, I think there's a storm, and it's like messing with the Wi-Fi, my data, and so I'm so embarrassed. This never happens on any of my interviews, so I'm so sorry, William. I hope.
I've actually had this. This has happened to me before, if you can imagine. I think that's why I kind of just took over the reins. Like, all right, yeah, Mule, he's gone. Let's take over.
I know. I'm glad. No, please don't let this be a lasting impression of how things go.
No,
it's never normally like this. I promise.
I've been in technology for about the last 20 years. I see it.
Oh, you understand. Thankfully, thank you. Good.
Totally.
Good. So I want to ask you. I want to touch on what you were just chatting about there as I came in. So, has there been a stunt that you were presented with, and you just had to get with your stunt coordinator, and just say, "I can't. I'm not doing that. I don't feel safe for me to do that."
I never refused to do a stunt, but there was a time actually on Nightmare 6. The scene was, I fall out this window and I land on the asphalt below after having fallen out a window. And the scene was, I fall out the window, I hit the ground, I roll out of the way, and then the actor, Sean Greenblatt, stands up into camera, and they follow him up to Freddy's front door. And we did this stunt in front of the actual Elm Street house here in Los Angeles. And everybody thinks of Los Angeles as being 150 degrees all the time. And it is today. But that night, it was about 25 degrees out, which is cold, especially for Los Angeles. And I'm wearing no padding. I'm wearing a T-shirt and I'm wearing skinny jeans. And where do I put the pads? Where am I going to put any pads? And they said, don't worry about it. It's just a dive roll. So if you know anything about gymnastics or martial arts, dive roll, you dive out and you just make yourself round. You're going to, land with this arm, and you're going to roll across your shoulder, roll across your back, roll across your hip, dissipate all this energy by rolling. And so I'm good. I get up there and I do it, and I hit the ground pretty hard. I mean, kind of knocked the air out of me, and, I landed pretty good. And they said, "Oh, Bill, sorry, man, not your fault. We're going to go again." The cameraman that was holding the steady cam that chased him up to Freddy's front door, he kind of got out of focus and kind of bumbled around a little bit. So, can you do it again? I look over at the stunt coordinator, and he looks at me and he's like, "Can you do it again?" I'm like, "Yeah, I got another one." So I do it again. This is a 7-foot ladder on the concrete or asphalt, no pads. So, you're hitting the ground pretty good. It's like playing football with your friends, and playing tackle football on the asphalt, So I do it again, and oof, that one hurt. Second one hurt more than the first one. And they like, one more time. We're going back to A. And I look over the stunt coordinator. He looks at me, and and I get back up there. Well, about the 4th time, they said, we need to go again. And I looked at the stunt coordinator, and he looked back at me, and he turns to the director of the film, and he said, "Look, we can't keep doing this. The guy's like, why not? He's like, that hit to the ground, that hurts. And he's like, well, he's a stunt man. He's like, it's not, we have the same nervous
Gee
system
whiz.
the rest of us do, and you expect, it's like playing football. I think if you come home beaten up a little bit, well, that's what the job is. That's the nature of the sport. But there comes a point where it's like, look, man, I'm hitting the ground hard. And I got to the point where I landed on my shoulder so many times that I wasn't quite sure it wasn't separated. And you don't want to complain. You don't want to be that guy, so I now was sort of over rotating and landing more across my rib cage and my hips. And that was hurting pretty good too. And finally, the stunt coordinator just turns to the director and said, look, if you want this done again, it's going to be $500 a pop. And then, whoa, $500 a pop for one fall? It's like, it isn't one fall. This is the 5th. And he says, well, how many more can he do?
That's right.
And he said, after each one, I'll let you know if he has another. So fortunately, my stunt coordinator looking out for me. But it was kind of one of those things where, there comes a point where it's like, hey, look, man, you can only do this so many times. And I got home and my wife saw me and I took off my shirt and she's like, oh my God, what happened to you? And I told her and she said, this is wrong, honey. This isn't good. You can't do this. I said, I made $8K tonight. She goes, oh, okay. Let me get you a bag of ice. She was like,
get some ice.
In the end, that was more than most of us made in a month, for one night. So it was fine.
Sure.
And, in the end, it's the work, it's the job that you do and you're paid to be durable. You're not paid to be, infinitely durable. You're not, completely invincible, but you put up with a certain level of that. And as much as I, there came a point where it was like, okay, this is too much. And this isn't my fault. This is somebody being fussy to try to get a shot that as I watched it the other night, I was like, you don't even see it. God, I hit the ground really hard for almost nothing in that shot. I mean, I see myself go through and I remember it.
No.
But I think anybody else watching it would be like, well, how high up were you? It's like, I was right there. And it's like, well, why were you just here? Because I mean, you don't enter the frame until you're 4 foot off the ground. Why'd you have to be 7 foot off the ground? I'm like, I didn't see the framing of it when we did it. All right, I would have said the same thing. So there's times where you stand up for yourself. I think there was a time we were doing a burn, and I was like, okay, let's explain this. Because I hadn't done, and it was a skin to skin burn. Whereas they're literally, they put cold gel on you and then they put basically lighter fluid. And the idea was that I'm committing suicide. I light myself on fire. And the guy who I'm one of my friends is also part of this cult and we're all killing ourselves. And so I shake hands with him like this and the fire goes from me up onto him. Cool shot. That's a pun there, sort of. Somewhere a reverse pun, and a really interesting shot, but very dangerous. It doesn't take long before that heat builds up and you go from cold gel to 3rd-degree burn. And so that kind of stuff I was super wary about. It's like, this isn't just cuts and scratches that'll heal. That could be loss of the use of an arm. I'm not going to do that cheap and I'm not going to do it capriciously. I'm not, people ask about what makes a good stuntman and it's not fearlessness. It's absolutely the opposite. It's understanding that, what all the risks are and then avoiding almost all risk, getting only the risk necessary to do the shot and then being able to do it 10 times, if that's what they ask for, because it's not supposed to hurt. It's supposed to look like it hurt. So the best stunt people, the smartest,
There you
smarter
go.
ones,
Wow, that's fascinating though, man. That's because like you say, I gotta say, whoever that director was, I mean, I know I'm not gonna look him up right now. I know the name.
Publicly shame him.
That's just kind of like, just because like those comments were like, man, that was a little bit insensitive, maybe.
Yeah,
kind of like
and
this
there
is
were
our
guys.
movie.
Yeah. One of the other movies you wanted to talk about, there's a story, Nightmare or Return of the Living Dead Part 2. There's a scene, and if you know the movie,
Yeah.
you'll see this. There's a scene where this zombie gets hit by an ambulance, and he goes flying back, and he lands, like this in a sign, like a big steel store sign.
Mhm.
And the way they done it
Yeah.
was the ambulance comes up and it doesn't actually hit him. There's something called an air ram. And this is basically a thing where you stand on it, you press a button, and it's a catapult. And it's like an air piston. And whatever's moving, whatever's standing on it is going that way. And it's going there in a hurry. And so
Wow.
they were getting ready to do the stunt, and the guy standing in his mark, they do it and they hit the button, and he didn't make it to the sign. He was almost there, and he landed where there was a concrete base, and his ribs went right across that concrete base. And I know he broke a rib. There was no way he couldn't have ribbed.
Oh.
And I see him go back to his room. He gets a bunch of duct tape and he's wrapping it around. He's, basically taped himself up, came back out and said, "All right, let's shoot. Let's go." And they did the shot again with him with got to be at least one broken rib. And I remember turning to the stunt coordinator saying, "If you think I'm that durable, you're
Wow.
wrong. If I have his broken rib, I'm done for the day. Thank you very much." But this other guy was just one of those gung-ho, hard as nails, tough as, toughest guy in town. And he was like, "Yeah, I've broken ribs before." I'm like, "Yeah, me too." And that's when I went to the hospital.
Come
That's where I
on.
would go if I had that. But, it's a great stunt. And when you see it in the film, it's a great shot. And like I said, I know guys who are a lot tougher than me. That's for sure. And, it was his decision. It's not like anybody said, "Hey, if you don't do this, you'll never work in this town again." He was just like, "Nah, I'm good. I can bear with it." Like, oh, I'm much more of a candy ass than that, you know. And we've lost him again, it appears. All right. Well, the Bill Perry Show continues. Let's see what else we got. Let's see. Sarah says hi to Luna. Luna says hi. Oh, no, we lost him again. But hang in there. He will be back. Of course he will be. He knows I'm stealing his show. What else we got? Any other questions in here that anybody would like to see if I missed anything? Loved License to Drive. Didn't know you did this stunt. Yeah. License to Drive was fun. License to Drive is what I call a Bugs Bunny movie. And for those of you too young to know who Bugs Bunny was, shame on you. But anyway, it was a lot of car work, which is always fun. Crashing a car is horrible when you don't know what's going to happen. When you know it's going to happen, crashing a car is fun. Don't go out and do this, kids. Get permission from your local, parent and police. But we've got to do a lot of different stuff on that. There's some bicycle stunts. There's the bus scene and that sort of stuff. Just a really fun show, because as much as you see all of this mayhem happen, obviously nobody got hurt. The show is that, people crash cars, but nobody gets hurt. Everybody just gets back up and the show goes on. So a lot of fun. And the kids, the Coreys were a lot of fun to work with. Very popular, very famous for being very young, but good kids, and kept me working because I was the same height as both of them at the time. So I did Lost Boys for them as well. So those kids were a good part of my 80s as well as yours. Let's see. What else we got? The 80s were so awesome. Were you there, Jason, back in the 80s? Let's see, William, have there been any since you've done that have pushed you? Okay, we already did the comfort zone question. What about working with Robert Englund? I wish I had a great story about working with Robert Englund. Hey, you're back. I'm just answering the question of what was it like to work with Robert Englund? And I was mentioning that I wish I had a great story. The problem with working with Robert Englund is not Robert Englund. It's the fact that Robert Englund takes forever in that chair to get so much makeup on. And so once he's got it all on, they try to shoot with him fast as they can go. And so I do have 1 or 2 scenes with Robert Englund personally, but I worked with him for minutes because if he wasn't in the chair, he was being touched up. And so once they had all that makeup on him, they didn't want to leave him in it any longer than they had to, because anytime he would talk or do anything, they might have to do touch-ups to keep the makeup looking good. And so for that poor guy, you know, he was always in the makeup chair, just constant. And so they shot with him as quickly as they could and got most of his scenes done as quickly as possible so that he didn't have to be so uncomfortable. So I wish I had more stories. I know lots of people who worked with him a lot more, but I don't. All I know is that he was a very patient man who put up with a lot of time sitting in a chair to look like Freddie. Seemed to enjoy his work quite a bit. You know, was a bit pigeonholed into that one role. I think if he'd known it was going to be the only role he ever got taken seriously with, for the most part, he might have looked at it differently. But that's all what I know just from interviews with him. You know, I'm a fan of these movies just like you guys. And so when people ask me, or when I get a chance to hear a great Nightmare on Elm Street story, I'm paying attention. Really? Yeah. I'm just like, that's what people don't get. You know, a lot of times when people will come to the conventions, it's like, you know, when people talk about scary movies, hey man, I'm just like you. You know, I get totally freaked out meeting, you know, somebody that was really famous from one of those movies. I'm like, you know, I just met, you know, Heather Langenkamp. You know, it's like, but you worked with her. It's like, yeah, but I didn't get to really meet her. We were working together and it was all very fast. You know, you don't get to really hang out with these people. Most of the time you're working, you know. So it's fun to get to see those folks at the shows. And, you know, I get to just go up and introduce myself. You know, I don't have to wait in long lines to do it. So it's kind of cool, you know. Fun stuff.
Yes. Well, and touching on Nightmare 3, and listen, I know what I'd like to do, William, is if you're open to it, I'd like to have you back on again where we can have, hopefully my technology will be back to normal and it'll be a lot smoother and we can continue our discussion.
Absolutely. I love this.
If you'd be willing to do that.
And your audience got great questions.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're really bright, really amazing, and they're all passionate. They're so passionate.
They know their films. Yeah.
You know, when I stream several times, they know. Yes, they really do. They know, and it's awesome. I love it as well. But I have to ask you real quick about Nightmare 3, which is one of my favorite sequels in the franchise. And man, the scene where we see that wheelchair, that wheelchair looked awesome. I wish I could have seen it really clearly lit up, but
you know,
can you
it still
walk us
exists
through that scene, because you were a vital part of that.
Yeah, that chair still exists. I actually saw it for sale. Somebody back in the New York area has the actual wheelchair. They wanted $15,000 for it. They didn't get it. It was up for auction. Yeah, it was up for auction.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I before we started talking, I told you there's a story. I'm going to tell the story. That wheelchair, the way they had that wheelchair chase me is it's just a big, you know, purpose-built wheelchair, you know, wheelchair from hell, and it's going to chase me. And I said, how does it chase me? Well, down the other end of this very long hall is a Volkswagen engine. And on the Volkswagen engine, there is a spool. And they would start that engine up, and they would, and the wheelchair is tied by wires to the engine. And so they start that engine up, they hit the gas, that thing pulls, and that thing comes hauling. And it's the amount of speed that it was going to get was hard to predict. And when you watch the film, I don't know how anybody misses them. I see them. It's all I can see. Watch the film. You're going to see at the bottom, you can see the wires. And the problem is the wires are between my feet because I got to be running. And they didn't want me on one side or the other. They said, we want you directly down the center. So I'm doing this high stepping thing like you would do, maybe, you know, running the tires in your old high school football team. So I'm trying to do this and trying not to step on the cable and not to trip. because if the thing hits you, that I
Yeah.
think the thing weighed about 200 pounds. You know, it had
Woo.
fake knives and blades on it. Those were all foam, but the thing still weighed, 200 pounds. Plus, it's getting pulled by an engine, which there is no brake. Once it's getting pulled, it's coming. And so I remember
Wow.
thinking, all right, just don't get run over. Just don't get run over. Just that's your mantra. Don't fall down. Don't get run over.
I bet.
You'll end up in a wheelchair. Oh, so ironically, by being hit by this thing.
Right.
And but every time I watch it, all I see are the wires. They're just right down there at my feet, and they even, I mean, I don't know how people don't see them. Maybe they weren't looking for them. I was looking for them, but as I watch it now,
Yeah.
that's all I see are the wires. But the actor that I was working with, Ira Hayden, I met about a year ago at one of the Monster Paloozas out here in Pasadena, and kind of rekindled our friendship. And I also worked with him on Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. And so we talk about that scene, and he's
Love
like,
that movie.
he goes, wait a minute, I did the wheelchair scene. I'm like, I beg to differ. I know that scene like the back of my hand, and that was me. And he's like, I always thought I did that. I'm like, wishful thinking, lad. No, that was me. But he's like, wow, you really
That's
look
right.
like me. Yeah, I'm like, yeah, I made a good double for you. But I said, yeah, I made you look good, though. It's natural that you would assume it was you, because I made you look so good. But that was
Exactly.
a very pivotal scene for me. I remembered at the time thinking, okay, this is one of those times where now I know why they're protecting the actor. I mean, could Ira have done it? He probably could have.
Right.
But if anything went wrong, that would be very bad. I always thought Ira was like way younger than me. I found out he's like 4 years younger than me. I'm like, wow, you age really well. I'm falling apart like a Yugoslavian motorcycle, and he still looks like he's about 30. It happened to me. But yeah, that was a really fun scene to do, and seeing it,
Yeah.
when I saw it in the theater, that's like, okay, that looked good. That was a good scene. I didn't know we'd be talking about it 30 years later, but it's a nice piece of work,
Right.
and it's a good scene. Everybody that talks about Nightmare 3 always says Nightmare 3 was really the original was my favorite, but if you had to pick, what was your favorite sequel
Mhm.
to it, it's always 3. And I think it's because of scenes like that, where it was practical special effects. There were real people or puppeteers, or
Yes.
the girl with
Mhm.
the needles, in her arm that looked like little mouths and stuff.
Oh yeah.
Very creepy as
Yes.
F, and
Yes.
creepy to watch him make it. I mean, that was very good puppetry, and a lot of the guy with the tendons being pulled about like a puppet.
Veins.
Oh, just nasty stuff. I remember seeing that going, oh,
Yes.
dude, don't even
Oh.
show me that. Stop, God. And he's like, like, dude, nasty. So if it scared you on set, you knew it was going to do well in the film, because if it looked good, I mean, if it looks that good close up, it's going to look great on camera. So that one of my favorites too. I think definitely my favorite of the 3 that I did, just for
Yes.
that reason. So much practical stuff that you were really proud of it, and you really thought it was
Yeah.
cool and gross and hip when you were doing, like, oh, that's gonna gross. People are gonna throw up in the seats. Yeah. That's apparently something we want.
It was awesome. Yeah, and you and I were chatting a bit before we went on the air, and I showed that to my daughter this week for the first time, and she's 13. She dug it. I mean, she really liked
Yeah.
it. And
Yeah, the character,
you
you care about the characters.
now? Yeah,
Yeah,
you
the
do. You really do.
and I think that's a big part of why it's scary and why it works. Wes wrote that one, and I think
Yep.
one of Wes's important parts of his writing is, if you don't care about the characters, it won't matter if they die. And then you're making films for
Nope.
people who like special effects. Not as much fun.
That's
If
right.
you care about these characters, or
Exactly.
you at least think they're interesting,
No.
or you at least think there's something about them, that makes them bad or good or whatever, then what happens to them in the course of the film is more entertaining and more
Yeah.
interesting. If it's just a bunch of disposable, characters, meh. Yeah, I don't think the film holds
Yeah.
up
Yeah.
in that manner if it doesn't do
Nope.
that. The best ones really
Yes.
you're surviving through Nancy, or you're surviving through this character
Mhm.
because you see yourself as that character is you walking through life, and you want them to succeed because you
That's
want to
right.
succeed, you want them to survive because you want to survive, you know so I think that's why that one really connects with people. The
Yes.
characters are diversely interesting. Some are less likable than others, but you still care for him. You still don't want to see him, even though you're kind of waiting to see how's Freddie going to do that one in, the welcome to prime time bitch line, doesn't get better than that. There's shirts that just have nothing but that. I've seen so much artwork that just says welcome to prime time bitch. It's like, wow, that line somehow, it's like Gone with the Wind, it's got this key line that really matters to people, that really is connects with them. And we've lost him again. Where does this man go? Let's see. What else we got? We got about Robert Englund question. Any stunts that push your boundaries? We got that one. Lost Boys, favorite vampire film of all time? Of course it is. It is. It's just a great film. Working on that was so much fun. So many cool people. Just a cool, well-written, fun, funny, scary, creepy. Just 100 things about that film that are just great. I think that's why it holds up so well. There's just nothing about that movie that was poorly done. Just too much good stuff. And they're saying, thank you, William and Craven. Yeah. I guess some people are having to leave. I guess it's just that late. But I guess we're back to say goodbye. Dream Warrior is my favorite. Awesome. You were part of his masterpiece. Yeah, I think so too. And we're back one more time.
Yeah.
Marionette scene was bone chilling.
One more time. My gosh. I think
we're talking about that marionette scene. Somebody was posting about that. And it's like, what? That absolutely grossed me out to the point where I was a little nauseous seeing it the first time. And I think it's Nightmare 4. The girl goes into the Roach Motel. Dude, never again. I watched that movie one time. I will never watch it again. That grossed me out. I have a problem with bugs anyway. And seeing a person, being torn apart in a Roach Motel can't be done. Can't watch it. Anything else here? Craven is Ghostface. I'm not sure what that means. Lost Boys, thumbs up. Yeah. Thank you, Wayne. And bye-bye, Polar. Good night as well. Well, assuming that this may be the end of our evening, I want to thank everybody for coming out. Thank you, guys. I hope to come back and we'll do this again another time, and we'll hopefully have less technological errors, and we will be we'll answer more questions. This is fun as hell. Even with the technological errors, I'm having a good time. Hi, Denisha. Good night, Denisha.
There we go.
I didn't know if I see a lot of people are
actually,
saying goodbye, so I'm assuming it's about that, everybody's bedtime wherever you are.
there's some folks. Yeah, it varies. I usually stream pretty late, and so but sometimes I do a lot on Saturdays and Fridays, mostly Saturdays. But this is okay. I sometimes.
Well, we
just
can do
get
it
started
again.
around
Like I
this
said,
time,
I definitely, I feel like you got shortchanged
Okay.
because you kept falling out. But actually, and one other thing too, I just want to say real quick, I am doing some of these convention
Please.
things. If you guys ever get a chance to come out and see me at a
Yes.
convention, come by. I'm new to
Yes.
this whole thing. I'm very very kind of tentative. I don't see myself as being anybody special, but if somebody wants to come by and talk movies and get a signature and all that, please come by. I'm going to be in Ohio and Arizona coming up in October. If you're in any of those places, please come by. That would be so much fun. So
Yes,
that's
and
my plug.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I was actually going to ask you about that, William. And you guys, I know a lot of my audience goes to conventions, and some of them drive like hours to go. So I'm going to go one step further than William. If you're within driving distance, like a few hours, of Ohio and Arizona, go. You want to be at these places, and I'm going to be sharing more with you as we get closer. In fact, I'm going to have William back. Thanks to be gracious enough to come back again, and we'll do this again in part 2. And I will have those actual festival or convention dates and locations and link.
Or they
They'll
could visit
be
Webb's
set
Craven.
up.
They could go see Webb's Craven on Instagram.
There you go.
There you go. You can see all the stuff I'm doing, which is not
Yes.
that much. But go there and you can see. I like to tell stories on there too. I'm a bit of a video freak, so I
Yeah.
post little videos about stories and things of different films. Yeah, if you guys are interested and you want to follow me, Webb's Craven or William R. Perry Stunts on Instagram. I love having followers. I love when people ask questions because my family's bored sick of all my stupid stories. So it's nice to have somebody that goes, "Hey, that was fun. Tell me more."
Yes. And everyone, I'm going to just to make sure you all heard them very clearly on Instagram. It's at Webb's Craven, WEBS, Web, like website,
Like his
Webb's
web developer.
Craven,
See, that's where
all
that came
together.
from.
Yes, which is a fantasy. I mean, that's another story we'll get into next time, a little bit deeper.
Yeah.
As well. I'm fascinated by that.
Yeah, that
and
was
also-
another one of the, there's great stories about
William
working with Wes on that website. Such a good guy.
What's that? Oh, yeah.
So there's some great stories working
I
with
was
Webb for the
gonna
website because he
say,
just gave me
William, you have
creative freedom just to do
a
whatever I
website.
wanted, and it was the awesome thing. Sorry, there's a bit of delay. We're talking over. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Oh,
You talk. And we're lost again. Damn it, these gods. William Perry needs to come to Australia. Damn straight. I would love to come to Australia. God, I have a lot of friends over there that I've just met just through Instagram. Coolest people. And horror fans, I love horror fans, but the more passionate they are, the more I love them. And boy, I would love to come there. I think it would just be the trip of a lifetime. Yes, if you're going to be in Bipolar, we're going to be in Marietta, Ohio, on October 21st. Lee Waddell, good buddy of mine, the original Ghostface from Scream, is going to be there, and some other folks, some other really fun people. It's only a 1-day deal, October 21st, but come out and see it. Let's see. Anything else I can answer for anybody before we scramble out of here? And yes, I did work on Elvira. Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. Cassandra Peterson. So hot. Are we back one more time?
We are back now. I'm rebooting my my home internet thing here. I'm trying to see, fingers crossed here in a couple of minutes if it's going to be back up. But yeah, I'm sure everyone and you have a website too, right? A Linktree site.
If you go to WilliamRPerryStunts.com, you'll learn more about me than you should probably know. A lot of dark things. I also wrote a book, which you can also get a little information on. This website called Chilling, or an app, I guess, called Chilling. If you want to listen to my book, you listen to it for free. I'm not trying to sell anybody anything, but go to Chilling app on. It's a free app. It's nothing but spooky stories, and they happen to take a book I wrote and made a 1-hour story out of it, and it's pretty flippin' scary, if I do say so myself. Yeah, dark stuff. People are like, "You're so funny." I'm like, you won't eat with me after you read my book. I'll tell you that. You'll never look at a cherry Danish the same way. I'll just go there.
Oh, dang.
I'll send you a link, actually, and we'll talk about it next time.
Thank you. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And Polar, thank you for putting up William's Instagram. Be sure you guys all go there to follow him immediately after this stream ends.
Immediately,
Please
if
do.
not
Let's
before.
support him.
Damn it.
Yes, that's right. Even right now.
Support
Do it now.
your local horror freak. That's what I'm saying.
Well, William, listen, I have to say again, thank you so much. And you've been such a trooper with all this technical issues over here. I deeply apologize for all this mess.
Oh no, it's
Never
fun.
happens, man.
That's all right. Like I said, well, this gives us a chance to do it again. Now we've covered all the basics. Next time we'll get into the dirt. We'll get into
There we
we'll
go.
cut through all the fat and sinew and get down to the muscle.
I love it. I love it. Well, guys, listen, again, in October, go out and see William. He's in Ohio. He's going to be in Arizona. I'll have links to those conventions as we get closer. When William comes back on, maybe we can get you back on maybe next month as those dates get closer.
Absolutely.
Perhaps.
Yeah, that'd be a nice
And we
time to
can,
kind of. And I love the questions. And you guys,
Yeah.
I hope that when people come to the conventions, I get these kind of questions because it just really gives you something to, to where it's interactive. I love when somebody tells me about what was their favorite scene, and then I can tell them a little bit about how that scene was done. And we just sit and geek out, just freaking geek out like there's no tomorrow. I don't get to do this very often where people are actually into geeking out about it. So I really look forward to the opportunity to hang with people who will just fly that horror freak flag and then really enjoy it and get in deep. That's fun stuff.
Oh yes, it's awesome, man. And I'm telling you, you're going to find, and you already have, but yeah, when you go to these conventions, it's just going to be like this constantly, man. And because we appreciate the work and the all of the passion that you brought to these roles to make these scenes come alive. And I tell here my audience all the time, I'm like, you know what? We really need to appreciate the amazing stunt professionals in this business, because without you and your peers, these movies would fall on their faces. They would not be believable. It's true. It's just the truth.
Yeah, it's new that it's new that a lot of us are getting out to do the conventions. And I tell people, I love the movies just like you do, but the scene that you think is so, iconic and pivotal, that wasn't him. It was this guy right here. And they're like, no way. And I was like, no, yeah, it was, and I'm proud of that part of it. And I'm glad that my actors look good, and I'm glad that it looks like it's really them and all that. But if you're into the filmmaking process and you think, well, somebody says, oh yeah, I got to get this guy's signature. It's like, he didn't actually do that. Just saying, and if I can get out there and toot my horn just a little bit, it's fun because then it gives them a greater appreciation for the whole filmmaking process and understanding what all went into it. And I think that gives everybody a little more depth of understanding and joy for the whole filmmaking process. Well, we've lost him one more time. Jason says, God bless all the stunt workers. Damn straight. We need that blessing because we're falling apart. We are the Geeks of Horror. You guys are awesome. So awesome. And truly just love the passion of the folks that are out there, still watching these movies and still interested in hearing about them and making the next generation of these things. I always like to encourage people when I can to, get out and make your own horror films. Gosh, Terrifier's making $1 gazillion, and it was made on a $30,000 budget by somebody who just had a really gruesome idea. That's where it starts. Don't let anybody tell you that it's impossible to do this stuff. I was told that by a lot of people who now probably work at their dad's grocery store, and never really made much of themselves. Making movies is fun, and everybody should do it. Let's see. Alex Winter said, you got to work with Bill from Bill and Ted. I actually, I got to work. I actually was sitting next to Alex Winter a few months back and got to say hello to him. And Lost Boys and Bill and Ted. How cool is that? He got to do some great films. I did too. I mean, so blessed to have been in all this stuff. I knew it at the time, but looking back on it, you see it even more and go, yeah, I was lucky, blessed beyond. I won the lotto about 50 times, in that way. Got to do the stuff that, was my passion too.
Oh man, and that's another thing. Next time We'll get into the Lost Boys, which we didn't even have to get into yet. And
Yeah.
there's so much more. I'm so excited already for next
Well, I'd be glad to come back. Like I said, I
So
feel like
guys,
we I hope we didn't jip out your listeners too much and your watchers.
oh no, you did an amazing job. You know, the pro that you are, carrying right on and I appreciate that as well. Uh, and I guarantee you next time. I shouldn't don't want to jinx it, but one time out of all the times I've done this, so that's hopefully out of the system here, whatever's going on.
It's all done
And,
now. All the bugs are worked out.
Yes, all worked out. So William, I'll be reaching out to you on Instagram or email, and we can continue to get things scheduled perhaps for next month as we move along. We'll check your schedule.
Push me, and I'm almost always available.
I can attempt to meet you back.
Yeah, I have no real life.
No, I love it. That's so
I have
awesome.
no life. Just call me anytime. I'm sitting here waiting for your call. Please, someone. I'm so desperate. My ego needs this so badly.
Oh my gosh, man, you're awesome. That's great. Well, guys, I know everyone in the audience loved it, and we all appreciate you giving your time tonight to spend some time with us. Means a lot.
My pleasure.
We really appreciate it.
And thanks to all you guys out there,
Fantastic.
Australia and all parts out there. I love that you guys have such a wide viewership. That's just awesome. That's so cool. It's like I said, when you do these films 30 years later, you go, who cares? And then you find out those guys do. I'm like, oh, that's so cool.
A lot of people. Yes, it's true, very much. So once again, guys, don't forget to follow William on Instagram. Go check out his Instagram posts. He's got some great posts on his account. They're very entertaining. Check them out. Follow him. Send him a note. Let him know, hey, saw you on Craven's channel, and
I'm
say
so
hello.
desperate.
Yeah, absolutely.
Call now. Your operators are waiting.
There you go.
All right,
That's
everybody.
Right.
You have a great evening wherever you are.
Again, and William, I will. Yes, and you too, man. I'll be in touch very soon. Thank you again so much.
All right. Thanks, folks.
All right, guys. Everybody take care, and we'll see you on the next live stream or the next video. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.